living out their dreams, and together we're building what we hope will be a more sustainable model for some kinds of journalism. And during a really hard time, that is such a cool thing. And I hope you feel good about supporting us. We feel great that you are here. So let's talk about the main event today. One of the ideas we have for Side Channel is doing journalism with the community. Already, just over the last day in the chat, you've been sharing links and ideas, those good tweets, and other stuff that makes us smarter and the newsworthy guests and have live conversations with them together. And so last week, as we were getting everything set up for today, I got word from Facebook that CEO Mark Zuckerberg might be available to stop by and see what we were up to here. And I thought, well, here I am using software that is basically brand new to me in front of hundreds of people who I will be making a first impression on. And that seemed like the exact right note of chaos to start Side Channel with. But you're all here. My microphone is on. The Discord engineering team is standing by. Thank you, Discord. And I believe we have Mark. Mark, are you here?
Yeah, I am. Thanks for having me, Casey. I guess welcome to Discord. I'm glad that this can be your first time using the product. I have to say, I am fans of both the work that you're doing at Platformer and what the Discord folks are doing. I think it's a great product.
Yeah, well, I was just about to ask because Discord is pretty new to me, and I know that you check out all of the big social products. What are your impressions of Discord?
Well, I think the team has done a very good job with it. I mean, I think it's I think it's impressive technically. I think the product is well implemented, and I think it kind of plays into this broader theme of different kinds of community products that are getting built, and increasingly, a lot of the new social experiences are getting built off of messaging rather than broadcast channels. And I think that this kind of community product does a good job of blending a lot of those things together. And we build a bunch of things like this at Facebook, obviously, between WhatsApp and Messenger and all the groups work that we do that a lot of people use. But there's just so much awesome stuff happening around the internet, and it's and I do think that the Discord folks have done a great job.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way it sells for 10 billion, right? It's got to be closer to 20.
I mean, that's not for me to say.
All right. So you've been popping up in some unexpected places online lately. You've been on Clubhouse. You're here on Discord today. And I think you may have some news to share about what Facebook is planning with audio, and we'll get into that. But first, I wanted to ask you, what is your theory on why audio products are taking off in a big way right now? And is it weird that tech companies built social video stuff before they built audio?
So, I mean, I think part of the reason why, I love doing things like this are because it feels so organic. And I think that goes to audio as a medium, right? And that it I think just allows for longer form discussions and exploring ideas and, going back and forth with different people. And I think that just allows you to get into different things that, frankly, it's a lot harder to in some of the other mediums. Audio, I think, is also just a lot more accessible. Right? Yeah. It's accessible for listeners because you can multitask. Right? I mean, I don't know how many of you who are kind of listening to this now, are doing something else. Right? It doesn't require your visual attention. I think increasingly a lot of us have things like AirPods in, where we can just listen in the background while doing something else. But from a production experience, it's also a lot more accessible, right? I mean, you don't have to kind of get a whole video set up. It's like I don't have to, I don't have to, pay attention to what I'm wearing when we're doing this, right? It's a lot easier and more accessible, I think. So I think video is great. Audio, is great. Video is great too. And the way that I kind of think about all these different formats is that for each of these kind of big first class types of formats, right? So text, photos, video, and audio as well, you can basically intersect each of those media with every single type of audience that someone would want to interact with. And there's an interesting product to build at that intersection. Right. So if you take, private audio one-on-one, that gets you to calling, right? So voice calling is something that we've done for a long time with WhatsApp and Messenger, and it's very widely used. Groups, you can get to the kind of chat that we're having now, scaling from a smaller group to a larger group. Then there's also an element of kind of short form versus long form, where with text, short form might look more like a post or a tweet. Long form might look more like a blog or journalism or even a book. And so you basically have all these different ways that each media intersects with different kind of products that can get built on the spectrum from private to public and short form to long form and ephemeral to permanent. And there's just a ton of innovation and different things to do. So that's the thing that I was hoping to talk about today is we're sort of in this mode right now at Facebook where we've built a lot of text products, a lot of photos products, a lot of videos products all across the spectrum. And I think the kind of high level picture here is that we think that audio is of course also going to be a first class medium, and that there are all these different products to be built across this whole spectrum. So I just kind of thought it would be fun to walk through the roadmap of what we're building over the next 3 to 6 months across all of these different things. And it, of course, it includes some areas that have been, popular recently, like podcasting and kind of live audio rooms like this. But I also think that there are some interesting things that are underexplored in the area overall that I'd love to get into.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite joke questions when I meet with founders is, "Tell me your entire product roadmap." So, if you're willing to share some stuff, we're happy to hear it. What about on the short form side, which I do think has been maybe less explored than some of the other players here?
Yeah, so maybe let's start with that.
Yeah.
One of the projects that we're working on, we call sound bites, and I guess the best way to think about this is, if you intersected what we're doing with Reels in Instagram and Facebook with video, kind of short form video. That you can create an algorithmic feed basically, or just kind of an experience where people can keep on seeing different reels that they're interested in. I think that there should be an audio version of that, and that's basically what we're working on. So the idea here is it's short form audio clips, whether it's people sharing things that they find funny, jokes, different kind of insights or kind of pithy things that people want to share. Cover a bunch of different genres and topics, and then you can both share that and have it on your profile and put it in people's feeds to consume as kind of one-off pieces of content, like a reel. Or we're going to create this experience where you can basically just chain a bunch of them together for a long time. So it basically is creating this dynamic algorithmic feed based on your interests around around basically different audio content that you can consume in the background, but is this snackable thing. So I think that is a pretty interesting and there are some folks who are working on projects like this, but I think this is generally more unexplored as an area compared to some of the areas that are already a lot bigger, like podcasts.
Right. And my understanding is that the way you're thinking about this, it might not necessarily just be like raw audio like we're sharing into our microphones, but you're going to sort of add creative tools and let people kind of, add the equivalent of audio filters.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think for all of the things that we'll talk about today, a big part of it is basically building the product to have, I guess, what we call an audio studio or recorder in your pocket. But that, it includes everything from, basically being able to, do different effects like speech to text, which we've already done in stories and reels and stuff, to different voice morphing and voice effects, different sound effects, but also just some basic things like removing background noise or upsampling lower quality audio that you might capture on a phone into much higher quality audio using machine learning tools. So all of that stuff, we want to give people a lot of power around that, but make it really easy to use. And that goes for everything from sound bites to, eventually just when you're on an audio call with someone to, of course, if you're doing podcasts or a live audio room like this.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I have found a little odd about, particularly the live audio rooms we've seen so far, is that the audio just sounds the same in every single place, which was just, to me, seems like it would make it harder for a company to thrive over the long term, right? If it is essentially just commoditized. So it sounds like you want the audio that is on Facebook to sound like it was made on Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is certainly a feel between the tools that you give for creation and the feel of the experience. But we also just want to make it so that people can produce stuff that they're proud of easily with a phone, right? And it's easier to do that with audio than video, but still, there are a bunch of tools that can help people produce more creative things that they're proud of that I just think will unlock, what we find in building all these social media tools there are a lot of people who sort of, have something that's really interesting that they want to share, but then when they kind of get it down, whether it's in writing or a photo of it, it just doesn't kind of look as good as what they had in their mind, and then they don't feel proud enough of it or think it's interesting enough, so they don't put it out there in the world. And I think if you can make it so that people can produce, can take their insights and creativity and as easily as possible translate that into something that they're proud of, that just unlocks a lot of value for people and social connections. That's something that we're pretty excited about.
Yeah. So when should we expect to see these sound bites in Facebook products?
So all the stuff that I'll talk about, I think is coming over the next few months, ish. Maybe some of it might take a little bit longer, but this is all stuff that we're over the next period planning on rolling out. It's most of the stuff is not stuff that we're going to roll out this week, but I thought it would be useful to go through this overall picture of what we're doing, because I think the sort of the high level thing again is sort of what does it look like to treat audio as a first class medium in the way that we would photos or videos or something like that, rather than just kind of any specific product that we're building. This is part of an overall approach that we're taking that we'll just hone over a long period of time.
Right.
But I don't know if it makes sense to go to some of the other things. I mean, there are three.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah, tell us what else.
Yeah, so I mean, the second one I think is maybe a bit more straightforward. It's basically about podcasts. And one of the things that we found is that there are 170 million people on Facebook who are connected to a page that's for a podcast already. So they've expressed that they want to get updates from the podcast. They want to get that content. But we just literally don't have a format today for that page or kind of people who want to share a podcast to kind of put that out to the people who want to follow that. So we're going to build that. And that is going to be, again, there are the creator tools for people doing podcasts to share it. But then on the consumption side, an experience where you can just discover that and feed, start playing it, put it in the background, maybe go to a different app, have it keep playing, right? Or just be able to multitask and do different kinds of stuff. So I think that's sort of, podcasts are obviously a big thing already, but I think just unlocking the ability for people and creators to share long form content there is going to be pretty valuable.
Yeah. And was there a third thing that was sort of like in this realm?
Yeah, I mean, the third area I think is more around live audio, like the type of stuff that we're doing, and I think that's been a really interesting trend that I think every once in a while a new like a new medium comes along that can be adapted to a lot of different areas, right? So I think feeds were kind of like this initially, where we built Newsfeed in 2006, but then since then, almost every social product has some sort of feed. But it's like a feed isn't one thing; it's a format that basically takes the shape and feel of the context that it's in. So your feed on Pinterest or LinkedIn is going to feel a lot different from your feed on Facebook, for example. And we've seen that a bit with stories too. And I think that's certainly going to be true with these kind of live rooms. I think the areas where I'm most excited about it on Facebook are basically in the large number of communities and groups that exist. I think that you already have these communities that are organized around interests and allowing people to come together and have rooms where they can talk is, I think, it'd be a very useful thing. When we launched video rooms earlier last year, groups and communities were one of the bigger areas where that took off. So I think around audio, just given how much more accessible it is, that'll be a pretty exciting area as well. And then the other area, of course, is just with creators, right? I think a lot of the one theme on all of this is, there is this just kind of massive creator economy that's growing, that I think is just really important to the future, because I think any good vision of the future involves a lot more people being able to, make a living on a day-to-day basis by just, expressing their creativity, doing things that they want, and having the tools and economy around them to support that as a living and a job. And so I think giving people the tools to be able to do that, and whether it's engaging with their community and in the kind of format that you're doing here, or podcasting and having the tools to make money off of that, I think is a really important thing. And that's something that we're going to focus on a lot too.
Totally. And I have a bunch of questions I want to ask you about the creator stuff. But maybe just a couple more on audio. I mean, one, as you've been talking about this, I'm picturing a world where a good, percentage of people who are using Facebook at any given time may not be looking at it. Like, is that your hope here, that at some point people will be walking around town and Facebook is something that they're listening to as opposed to something that they're scrolling through?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. I think it's possible that we'll get there. Although in developing all of these things, we're actually really focused on the creator side, even more than the consumption side. Clearly it needs to be a good consumption experience in order to enable creators to connect with folks. But I just think that there's a big opportunity to allow all these different groups to do new creative work and to get paid for it. And I think that this is one of the areas where I think our company has a lot to bring to the table, because we have built very advanced monetization tools and have a pretty robust economy, and be able to plug that into creators more broadly, not just in audio, but in all of these different categories. For video, I mean, that's been a big thing, and is growing quickly for gamers and game creators. I mean, that's growing. Journalists, influencers, like all kinds of different creators. I think this is like a big part of what I think needs to happen over the next 5 years. I do think we've hit some sort of inflection where, if you just look at the success that you're having with Platformer as an example, it's it probably seemed like a pretty big risk when you started Platformer, right? It's like, maybe this thing isn't going to work, but I think we've hit some kind of inflection where talented people like you can easily make a living and actually do quite well. And then if you can do that, then obviously if you could only kind of barely make a living, then it would be harder for people who have maybe less experience than you to also do that. But at a point where you're making quite a big business off of what you're doing, then there's probably some hope for people who are kind of newer to the game to be able to make a living, and then you just support more creative people in this economy. So I guess I kind of think about that as a big part of this. And some of the stuff that we're seeing in monetization, we have this product called Stars for that we started off with game streaming and video streaming, and it's basically a way for fans to tip creators, and that's gone quite well, better than I expected, and now expanding the ability for people to give stars and to do tipping in podcasts and in live audio rooms like this. I think is going to be pretty powerful. So I'm excited about that. We've built out a pretty robust donation infrastructure, where I think overall people have donated something like $5 billion to a bunch of different causes across the platform. And a lot of influencers and celebrities, especially, when they create things, they're not necessarily just trying to make money for themselves. A lot of them are trying to raise money for other groups. So being able to plug that into a robust kind of donation infrastructure, I think, is a pretty valuable set of tools. And then, soon we're also building out a bunch of tools for subscriptions, and the ability to give paid access on a kind of case by case basis. And we did paid online events and things like that to help different folks with COVID and in connection with some of the video rooms work that we did. So I think that there's just like a very big roadmap of different tools that people need for monetization. And all of these things I think will end up applying across all these different areas, from video to audio to gaming and all these different formats that we're building.
I think so too, and I do want to get to all the creator stuff, but I want to ask one more big question about the audio stuff, which is when big social networks launch new mediums like this, people like me worry a lot about how they will be moderated, right? Like, what are the policies? How are they enforced? Will the enforcement be equitable globally? And this social audio is a fairly new thing. So, like, can something like this be rolled out globally in a responsible way?
Yeah, well, I mean, we have a little bit of practice at this, both from all the broader integrity, trust, and safety work that we do, where I think at this point we've probably built, by far the most advanced AI tools to be able to identify, different harmful content and across, all of these categories, whether it's terrorist activity to child exploitation to people inciting violence. We've just gotten better and better at building tools that can identify that stuff proactively and automatically. And I think our team working on all that stuff is like 1,000 people or something across the company. So it's just on the AI side, right, or on the engineering side.
Right.
We've also, on video rooms, had to deal with some of the early abuse cases, and have basically figured out, okay, what do good rooms look like in a community versus ones where there might be more abuse. So we have some early learning on that, but I mean, this from covering the space. I mean, it's an inherently adversarial space. You never solve it. You just improve, and you try to keep the level of kind of crime or bad activity as low as possible, right? But it's not like if you're trying to run a city, your goal isn't to eliminate all crime, right? It's to get it as low as possible, because having no one do anything bad is just not a possible goal.
Right. I mean, I also wonder, how, to the extent to which you can use the AI tools you have to scan audio the way that you're already doing it for text and images. Is that a fairly one-to-one thing, or do you have to sort of go out and build an entirely new infrastructure?
I mean, I think, well, there's a few different questions in this. I mean, some of it will be translatable. Unfortunately, every domain is a little bit different, right? So that's part of the broader challenge on this stuff is, there's about 20 categories of harmful content that we track, right? It's, ranging from the things that I just mentioned, terrorism, child exploitation, incitement of violence, intellectual property violations, different types of misinformation. There's about 20 different categories. And doing that well across different mediums and in well more than 100 languages around the world, you get some scale benefits. It's not like you're starting from scratch every time you open up a new medium or a new type of harm, but there's also specific work that needs to be done. So that'll certainly be a new area. But there's also this question of just kind of what should you enforce against, and
right.
And I think that's not. That's going to be an open debate where, I think if we go back, 5 years, I think a lot more people were more, on the free expression side of things. Today, a lot of people still are, but there's also this kind of rising wave of more people who are basically calling, for more stuff to be blocked or limited in some way. And I think that's sort of, that set of debates, I think, will be going on forever in terms of where to find the right line, given what is going on in society and how to balance different social equities around free expression and basically people's safety and privacy and the other equities on the other side of that equation. So I don't take it for granted that just because you have the ability to kind of do different kinds of enforcement that you should always do every single thing. I think that a lot of the time you want to be on the side of free expression and allowing people to have more conversations.
Got it. All right. Well, let's talk about creators since you brought them up. So let's say this stuff rolls out. If a creator asked me, Casey, should I bet my audio business on Facebook? I think I'd probably say I don't know, because I don't know how much Facebook will care about audio in a year or two. Whereas if they just started a podcast and built a more direct relationship with their audience, that would be something that they could own forever. So what is your pitch going to be to folks to make Facebook their home?
Well, I think we're going to build these products. We hope that they will be valuable to a lot of people. We hope the monetization products will work. I'm fairly confident about that. And then I think over time, different people will just adopt them at different stages. But like any new thing, earlier on in the evolution, there's more risk and potentially more reward in adopting it. So it's not like early on, I'm not sure that we're going to be out saying that everyone should be doing this. Just like you sort of had to make this big leap to Substack and Platformer, and that felt like a big risk. But maybe for the next person who does it, maybe it'll feel a little bit less like a risk. But maybe because all these people now already have subscriptions to you in the first generation of Substack folks, it'll actually be a little harder for the next generation to kind of get to the same scale. I think that you have that kind of risk reward with all new things. So, but these things definitely go through an iterative development where it's not like everything that we do is going to work the first time. But I do think we have a pretty good track record of over call it a 3 to 5 year period, iterating on the things that we believe in and getting them to a point where they're good. So you mentioned video, right? Our video
the pivot to video, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think that it's an interesting example where I think in that case a number of folks jumped on that before the tools were mature, and it ended up working quite well for some creators and not as well for other kinds of news publishers. But if you fast forward to where we are today, the video efforts overall that we've done are massive, right? It's a increasingly central part of what we're doing across all of our products. I think the scale of video that people are watching, it's not quite as big as YouTube, but it's almost there on a lot of fronts, and doing quite well, and the revenue shares and a lot of people are doing quite well from that. So I think that the audio work that we'll do will probably follow a similar trajectory if we stay committed to it. And some of these areas like podcasts are a little bit more mature. So I think there's probably a pretty good sense that people are going to want podcasts, and our monetization tools are I think will probably perform quite well. Whereas other areas like sound bites, I wouldn't be surprised if it takes a little bit of iteration to get those to work really well. But what I can tell you is that this is something that we're committed to. We do see this whole suite of audio products as similar to kind of what we saw with video and what we saw with photos before, and all the different kinds of text that people want to share. So this is certainly something that we're going to invest a lot in building out and iterating on over the next several years.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe the lesson that will be drawn from the pivot to video that will play out here is that like video and audio products on social networks will be really good for individual creators or small companies, and like with big publishers, it just makes a little bit less sense. Is that a good guess, or no, or too early to say?
I'm not sure. I think that's. I think a big part of the creator economy is that it's enabling individuals, and in sort of shifting power from some traditional institutions to individuals to exercise their own creativity. And I think that that's a positive trend in the world. It I think is really empowering for a lot of people and allows a lot of new stuff to get created. But yeah, no, I think based on that, your prediction that this is likely to work better for maybe individual creators or small groups, I mean, I could see that playing out for sure. I think over time, a lot of those individuals will end up building up quite sizable enterprises on their own, right? So I mean, I don't know, what your plans are with Platformer, but as it continues growing, I wouldn't be surprised if you hired and brought on more people and built it into a bigger team. You're already doing side channel, teaming up with other folks. So you're kind of building new types of organizations on your own. So I do think that these tools will scale with the next generation of folks. But I just think that enabling creators to build good businesses and support themselves while kind of pursuing their creative interests is going to be a very powerful part of not just what we're doing, but I think a lot of other folks who are participating in building these creator tools too.
Yeah, well, and speaking of that, I know we have a lot of folks from Spotify here. What are you working on with Spotify when it comes to podcasts?
So we're actually working with Spotify on music as part of this. Music is obviously an important part of audio, and we have a long running partnership with Spotify going back many years. But as part of the experience that we want to enable, in the apps across, basically making audio first class type of media. One of the things, of course, is there's a lot of musicians on the products. Musicians are a really important part of the creator economy. We want them to be able to share content and people to be able to consume it and play it in the background while they're using the app. We want people to be able to share content from their favorite artists and share playlists and different kinds of stuff. And then in your feed, just be able to click and have a little player in line and be able to use that. So I think that's going to be, it's been a really fun integration in building it. We've called that Project Boombox is the name that we've used and working with Spotify on it. And yeah, I think that's part of the overall picture of what we're trying to develop as well. So we've talked about 4 different product areas today between sound bites, podcasts, live audio rooms, and the Boombox and kind of music player work that we're doing with Spotify. So it's a lot of different stuff in addition to the creator tools and monetization, but that's sort of a picture of the roadmap and some of the stuff that we're planning on doing for the next few months.
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about newsletter stuff? Facebook has said that they're working on newsletter things, and it seems like there may be some intersection there between the written word and audio. Is that something you see?
Yeah. So this is something I'm pretty excited about, right? Because a lot of the journalists and folks who I think have been most innovative online, are not just doing newsletters. They do that, and they also do podcasts, right? Because I think the mediums they complement each other, right? There are things that you can explore in a longer form conversation, but then when you're in writing, you're kind of getting a definitive and kind of the clearest possible version of something down, and it's easier to excerpt and all that. But I think a lot of people want both, and I think a product where a journalist or a creator can basically create a subscription for people who want to follow them that spans both a newsletter and a podcast is going to be a really powerful thing. So that's a big part of what we're going to enable with some of the monetization tools around podcasts that dovetails with the work that we're planning to do around our work on newsletters and giving tools for independent journalists. I think enabling both of those things to come together on extremely favorable terms to journalists and creators will be a pretty powerful thing.
When you say extremely favorable terms, that makes me remember that Substack takes 10% of revenue for writers. Is this a case where their margin is your opportunity?
Well, I think we come at it from different perspectives. I mean, I think Substack has done great work. So I'm very complimentary of what they're doing, and I think they're doing a good job with the product. But I do at the same time think that the biggest part of our business is not going to be taking a small cut of things from creator tools. So that does give us the opportunity to basically build tools at potentially more favorable terms and have more of the economics go to creators. If you think about what our interests are in the space, we want this kind of creativity to thrive, and we want that content to be out there, and to be created. And we think that basically, helps foster social connections, helps build community, help give people things to talk about and share. And that's ultimately, the bread and butter of what we do. But being able to build creative tools that I think will just unlock the ability for more people to pursue creative work as their job, is just, I think will kind of make that all better, and also just contributes to a future that I think is better. I mean, as like I was saying before, I think almost any version of the future that's optimistic includes people doing more creative work, rather than just stuff that they feel like they have to be doing.
Yeah. Well, and at the same time, though, you're building these monetization tools, and they're going to run right into App Store policies from Apple and Google that could force creators to give up 15 or 30% of their revenue. Do you feel like that limits what you can build here? And does it make it harder to create a kind of middle class for creators?
Yeah, I mean, I've been pretty vocal that I think some of the App Store policies hurt the creative economy. I think especially during COVID, taking a 30% tax of activities from a lot of small businesses that have moved from having physical shops to online, right? So if you have like a physical trainer who used to go meet with people in person in a gym, but now is doing lessons online over something like video rooms, and we offer a paid online event product so that way they can charge people for that. And then you have Apple taking a 30% cut of that just because the person is forced to be online because they can't have their gym open. That's tough, right? And that's something that that I don't think has been good. But look, on this, I think it will be okay. I think it will work. It would be, from my perspective, more ideal if the tax on these things were lower. I think it would allow the economy to grow faster. But I mean, what you've seen with things like Substack is, you're not getting subscriptions through the App Store, right? So you're not paying 30% to Apple.
Right.
And I think in anything that we do, I think we'll want to both give people options that are kind of outside of the apps and on the web, so that way they can kind of reach their own subscribers through the channels that you and others are doing today. But I think the question is of incrementality, right? So how many additional customers would you be able to reach through the App Store and or through apps, right? So through Facebook, through Instagram, and if that number is sufficiently high, on top of what you're doing already, then it may still be economically better for you. Now, there's another part of this though that's not just the economics, which I think is really important, and that's portability, right? I think one of the powerful things that Substack has done is making it so that if you, or maybe you're a bad example because I think you may have some specific contract with them for some period, but if someone signs up with them, or if you, once your contract of a year or 2 years or whatever it is done, decides to pick up and go to another place, your subscriber list is yours. And right. I think that is a really powerful part of the creator economy too. And it's one of the things that's interesting is if someone else is intermediating your payments, like an app store, it actually not only hurts your economics, but hurts your portability. So I think that is a part of this that we're pretty focused on too, because when we talk about giving favorable terms, I think it's actually not just the economics. I think it's also the portability. So that way creators know that if they start building up a business here, that they're not just going to be locked in and we'll be able to take it to different places. So that's an area that we're pretty excited about innovating on as well.
Well, I mean, for what it's worth, I think that's great. That was my first question when I heard that y'all were working on this, was would creators be able to take their list with them? Like that is the sort of the whole ball game here. So, if you can build a world where that is more possible, I think that's a good thing. I want to ask you about where you think we're headed here. It was sort of related to that last question. I started writing a newsletter, honestly, because I was tired of fighting for attention in the news feed. Like the particular sorts of things I write about are not Facebook news feed bait for the most part. And so I started doing a newsletter and now this community because I wanted a more direct connection with an audience. But at the same time, I see that newsletters are now proliferating, right? People are already complaining that they maybe subscribe to too many. And a big company like Facebook sees an opportunity to maybe aggregate some of those together and do something with it. So is all of this going back to my newsletters to newsletters in general being consumed via ranked feeds as opposed to the inbox? And if you were me, what would you do about that?
Well, I mean, I think you probably have a sense of where this is going, right? Which is, these social products go in waves where at the beginning of something, a space is less pressurized, right? Which might mean that there are just fewer people doing newsletters in this case, which means that, if someone subscribes to you, maybe they don't have a lot of other folks that they're subscribing to. So, right now, you're not competing in a feed, you're competing in, maybe their Gmail inbox or something. So I wake up in the morning and I get your newsletter and a few others that I subscribe to, and I don't always have time to read all of them. Well, I get yours in the evening, not in the morning, which I actually think is a good touch, by the way, because the other ones I do think are sort of competing for morning email time, reading attention. But
you're giving away my secrets, Mark. Please, I beg you.
Look, it's you're gonna have to. It's the space.
All right, it's fine. So where's it all going?
Yeah, but so I mean, I think as more people produce good stuff, there will be more competition, whether it's in an email inbox or a feed for attention. I think that's one of the big questions that there will need to be innovation around is, what is the carrying capacity of a medium, right? How many newsletters can someone subscribe to before they just can't really get value out of it anymore? And, part of the point of an algorithmic feed is to make it so that you can basically stay connected to a lot of people and make sure that you're seeing the most important stuff, right? I mean, there's in sociology, there's the old concept of Dunbar's number, right? It's that idea that people can maintain connections with about 150 other people, and in a lot of social contexts, when a tribe or group expands beyond 150, it starts to subdivide into other groups, because that's sort of what our human capacity is for social connection. So one of the ways that I thought about the work that we were doing earlier on with newsfeed was, can we extend people's natural social capacity to be able to stay connected to more than 150 people at once? And part of the way that you do that is by more efficiently surfacing what's going on, right? So in the same way that maybe glasses as a tool help you see better, I would hope that Facebook and newsfeed as a tool will help you stay connected to a larger number of people, and kind of maintain that connectivity in a way that you wouldn't otherwise. So I do think that there will probably at some point need to be innovation on the side of, how do we increase the number of creators that someone can have a relationship with in order to be able to grow the economy. So I don't know exactly what that looks like yet, but I do think you're gonna, as this all gets built up more, there certainly will be more competition.
Something to look forward to. Well, this has been really fascinating.
Yeah, early, right?
Yes. I'm glad I started my newsletter in 2017 for sure. But at the same time, I do want to make sure that there's opportunity for a lot more people to do something like this. Charlie, who joined the side channel, just quit his job a couple weeks ago, and I think he has a huge opportunity ahead of him too. And frankly, I just think journalists need all the help they can get, but from tech companies, civil society, maybe even the government, to ensure a healthy future for that. But of course, the opportunity goes beyond journalism, and I think could help people do more creative work, which is great. But Mark, let me end on a serious question. So you've talked about a lot of really positive things that Facebook can do here to make life easier for people like me and many more. The side channel is an experiment, and I think platformer readers generally have a pretty nuanced sense of like what Facebook is and does in the world. They have a lot of questions about it, but for the most part, I think they have a pretty nuanced approach. We have other people in the server who have a lot of concerns about what Facebook is. I don't know what all of those are, but I'm sure we've had a very active a reaction chat going here. And so I sort of want to ask you the question that I asked Nick Clegg when I talked to him like a week or so ago, which is, that you run a very polarizing company, and some folks, I think, have maybe given up on the idea that Facebook can be net positive in the world. So what is the case that you make to yourself every day that it is?
Well, I think that this is about enabling people, right? So the question for me is, do you believe at some basic level that if you empower individuals, that that leads to more good? And, I think that, we're in a very tumultuous time, and a lot of institutions and, things that have been around for decades, people are losing faith in. I think some for good reasons and some for not. But that dynamic is really shifting, and I think that a lot of the people in those institutions, who are primarily sympathetic to it, look at a shift in the world as if a vision of the future where there's more individuals who have more power, and can kind of do what they want, rather than going through those channels, that's not a good future. And we tell stories about things like how without traditional gatekeepers on information, you have things like misinformation run rampant. And look, I'm not trying to downplay that, right? I think misinformation is a real issue, and I think that there should be things that are focused on basically stopping that from spreading, and we invest a lot in that. But I think if you look at the grand arc here, what's really happening is individuals are getting more power and more opportunity to create the lives and the jobs that they want, and to connect with people they want, and to connect with the ideas that they want, and to share the ideas that they want. And I just think that will lead to a better world. It will be different from the world that we had before. I think it will be more diverse. I think more different ideas and models will be able to exist. And I think it inevitably means that some of the people who kind of had control over that world in the past will lose it. And I can see why those folks will lament the direction that it's going in. But my concern is that we're too frequently telling the negative sides of it from the perspective of the institutions that may be not on the winning side of these changes. Where I think the people who are on the winning side of these changes are individuals. Whether that's the people who are getting to use these tools and share, connect with the people they want, and have all kinds of new experiences, or this whole new set of people in the creator economy who are now going to be able to participate in a whole new set of jobs that didn't exist in the past, but allow fundamentally more creativity in the world. So, I've learned over the last several years not to be, too Pollyannish about this. There are real issues that need to be dealt with. But my own sense is that the narrative is a little too biased, or maybe a lot too biased, towards telling the negative side of the issues, rather than all the value and opportunity that is being created. And that's what I care about, and we're committed to building that out. I think technology is a big enabler of expanding people's capacity to do more things, whether that's subscribing to more creators and having a larger carrying capacity for the amount of newsletters and journalism that they can subscribe to, or allowing people to stay socially connected to more people they want. And I just think we have to keep at it and keep working on these things. And I think it can be very positive over time.
Very good. Well, that gives us a lot to think about, and I think we should probably leave it there. As always, I am both fascinated by and nervous about what you're building, but I do think there's a lot of opportunity here for individuals, and that's going to be cool to see, I think. So thank you for coming here on our first day, and if you ever want to take some more questions, we would love to have you back here at Side Channel.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
All right. Thank you, Mark.
All right. See you, Casey.
Bye. I want to thank you all for listening, and I also want to thank my co-hosts here in Side Channel, Annie, Eric, Kim, Nick, Delia, Charlie, and Ryan. All of them have been awesome partners in creating the vision for Side Channel, and I am so grateful they said yes to giving this thing a try. And I also want to thank the Discord team, who gave us a lot of help as we were trying to figure out their software over the past few weeks. So Michael, Rick, Steven, thank you all so much. And that's that. I'm going to go write today's platformer, which we're going to have some highlights from today's chat. And then I think I'm going to try to be back here at about 5 p.m. Pacific to have a little happy hour. We can talk about the interview. You can tell me what I missed, yell at me a little bit. So that should be good too. So I hope to see you then. In the meantime, go forth, chat, meme, and be kind to each other. We're doing this thing. Thanks, y'all.